Hello everyone, thank you for joining us for another edition of Texas Insider TV, brought to you by SpeedStream. I'm Jim Cardle. The premier trade organization on the northern and southern borders, the Border Trade Alliance, represents approximately 4.2 million businesses, grassroots citizens, economic development corporations, and more. We're privileged today to be able to visit with President of the Border Trade Alliance, Nelson Balido. Nelson, thanks for joining us.
Jim, thanks for having me.
You're based out of San Antonio. As I mentioned, the Border Trade Alliance runs the entire northern and southern border, but let's focus on the southern border if we can today. You are a former advisor to the Homeland Security Council, Mr. Chertoff. You're also a former partner in the FEMA operation. But most importantly, the Border Trade Alliance focuses on something that a lot of people don't realize in this day and age, and that's simply international trade.
That's right.
Give us a thumbnail sketch, if you can, about the Border Trade Alliance.
The BTA is one of the premier organizations on our U.S. borders for cross-border trade, travel, and security issues. We represent municipalities, defense companies, transportation companies, private individuals that are all interested in making sure that we have legitimate trade and travel going across our U.S. borders in a safe and efficient manner. The more trade we have in the United States, well, obviously, the better we're all off and the more jobs we have. And there's no question that Mexico has been growing by leaps and bounds with single-digit, sometimes double-digit year-over-year growth in trade. And for Texas especially, it's been quite lucrative.
And the Border Trade Alliance was founded, I believe, in 1986, correct?
That's right. We've been around quite a number of years, basically founded out of transportation issues back then, and was the catalyst actually for NAFTA. Back then we got together with chambers of commerce's different municipalities, leaders across the United States on the northern and southern border to lobby Congress and testified during those times to lobby Congress to pass NAFTA. And fortunately that happened, and it's been a great roller coaster ride, as we all know.
I bet it has. We'll have to have you back to talk about NAFTA, the old North American free trade that was supposed to be the big sucking sound.
That's right.
Moving things out of the U.S., it's turned out to be beneficial. But one of the biggest issues in our Texas economy today, particular, and also along the southern border, is border violence and border security related issues.
That's right.
You recently, for us here at Texas Insider, wrote an article about a recent death, Agent Ivy, killed, and it's a constant issue. Does get some attention, but the real danger of representing in the United States and working on the border. Tell us a little bit about what you see in your travels, whether it be in Texas or otherwise, of the dangers there.
Sure. Well, first I want to say that anytime there's an agent that falls in the line of duty, our hearts go out to them and their families, their relatives. It is a tragic experience for anyone, and we never want that to happen. On another note, we also want to make sure that we have the right security, the security protecting our borders, a layered defense security that makes sure it prevents any unauthorized accidents or the illegitimate trade and travel that we necessarily do not want to be crossing our U.S. borders.
We probably all know what you're talking about.
Sure, and really what we want is for that border to be the last line of defense, not the first line of defense. So we need to take some of the issues to our Mexican brethren south of the border and kind of hold them responsible for securing their southern border. One of the things that in my conversations with a lot of the members of the Border Patrol is nearly 2/3 of all the folks that we are actually gathering on the border now or apprehending on the border are what they call OTMs, or other than Mexican. And that's concerning because these are folks from Indian descent, Chinese descent, Middle Eastern descent, Ecuadorian, Honduran, Guatemalan, and they're coming in through Mexico and also their southern border.
And the question is whether they're legitimately friendlies or not.
And that's what we don't know.
Right.
That's what we don't know. So these are the folks that we are capturing at the border, unfortunately. So it's not just Mexicans crossing the border. I think that's just become a stereotype over the years. The demographics have changed of what's crossing our southern border at this time. Those are the things that and issues that we have to take to Mexico to make sure that they're doing their fair share and also protecting their southern border and also, illegal crossers of their northern border.
Okay, you are a former member of the Homeland Security Advisory Council working with Secretary Chertoff. Recently, in the last 6 months, President Obama's come to our state, been to El Paso.
That's right.
He and Secretary Napolitano say that the border has never been more secure. Others obviously have different opinions. What's your experience or what's your comment on that scenario?
Well, it may be more secure. Is it secure? I don't think it's secure. I think it's more secure. One of the things is it's depending how we're defining that. There's no question that we've had an economic downturn, so there's less crossers than there's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
There's also, you have an extreme low unemployment rate in Mexico, actually, because of the foreign and direct investment. It's being the new China, so to speak, with a lot of investment going into Mexico that really you look at what's happening there, and because they have jobs, because there's a growing middle class, therefore there's no need to go anywhere else. They have it there.
And a lot of folks don't realize that as the U.S. economy has been in a downturn for a couple of years, there has been significantly less, correct me if I'm wrong, migration north, correct?
That's right. There has been because of all those things.
No jobs.
No jobs. No jobs. When in Mexico there is jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, you see a downturn in Mexicans crossing the border, and you have other than Mexicans crossing that border, even though that's still diminished over the years. But still, nevertheless, folks still crossing the border illegally.
A tough situation. Again, folks, thanks for joining us. We're visiting with Nelson Balido, the president of the Border Trade Alliance. And Nelson, if we can wrap up here real quick, I want to drill down into trade specifically. You're referring to it indirectly there, but you mentioned before we started filming that there's, for the first time in 100 years, a railroad bridge being built.
Right.
Talk about the trade a little bit, and maybe in particular the bridge, if you want.
Well, let's talk about trade in Texas. $12 billion a month. We do more in 1 month in Texas than Arizona does their entire year. So there's no question that there's hundreds of thousands of jobs on both sides of the borders that link to trade with Mexico.
Unbelievable.
It is, and these are facts that a lot of folks don't know. And not only that, but you also have hundreds of thousands of daily crossers that come into the U.S. to purchase goods and services and leave their tax dollars behind for us to be able to be used here.
I see a hint of a smile on your
Yeah,
face.
well, you don't have to go very far from Austin. You can go to San Marcos in certain parts of the year, and you see a lot of shoppers there that have no question helped our economy. And so you're looking at the trade and how it's increasing. Well, you have three major rail bridges in the state of Texas. You have Eagle Pass, you have Laredo, and now you're going to have the first bridge in 100 years in Cameron County, close to Brownsville, that will absolutely be stupendous for our international trade and lift those numbers even higher. The great thing about that particular bridge is it brings goods and services from Tamaulipas and other parts of Mexico that perhaps didn't have this type of access before. So now having 3 major rail bridges, and obviously in El Paso there's a crossing as well, but mainly in South Texas, will be exponential growth for NAFTA, for Texas, and for jobs here in the state.
Good news, something for you to come back in the future.
That's right.
We appreciate your time here and for you
Jim,
stopping by.
thanks for having me. Thank you.
Folks, Nelson Balido, president of the Border Trade Association, stretching from Brownsville to San Diego and the northern border. Appreciate you coming by.
Thank you.
Be sure and tune back in for future editions of Texas Insider TV. Remember, you're either an insider or you're not. I'm Jim Cardle. Thanks for joining us.
That was good.